the Federal Emergency Management Agency, better known as FEMA. From tornadoes to hurricanes to wildland fires and even acts of terrorism, when disaster strikes and a federal state of emergency is declared by the President of the United States, FEMA is called for disaster response and recovery. With boots on the ground, ready to go at a moment's notice, FEMA is there, ready to assist all disaster survivors and help them on their roads to recovery. Originally spearheaded by the Disaster Act of 1974, now known as the Robert T. Stafford Act, FEMA has been the foremost leading authority in disaster preparedness and response, and in their continued dedication of serving the public interest and the public trust. FEMA's slogan is helping people before, during, and after a disaster, encompassing the FEMA core values of compassion, fairness, integrity, and respect. Unfortunately, that only goes but so far. Those mottos have been implemented as the ethical work practices and standards of how all FEMA employees should behave, and utilizing them as their code of conduct. But appearances are deceiving. I'm Brett. I was a FEMA disaster reservist, and this is my story. I joined FEMA in 2011. My job title was an Individual Assistance Reservist out of Region 2. My job was to work at disaster recovery centers during a declared disaster and register disaster survivors for disaster assistance. After the Superstorm Sandy deployment, I had to stop working for FEMA due to my dad's ailing health. I came back to FEMA in 2020 and became a disaster survivor assistance specialist, also a reservist, this time out of Region 3. My job was to pass out FEMA flyers and register disaster survivors in their neighborhoods, also providing them with local resources for additional disaster assistance. September of 2022, I was deployed to Florida for Hurricane Ian, which was a 3-month deployment. It was this deployment that I started to experience just how badly us FEMA employees were being neglected and mistreated.
Brett, thanks for coming in today and sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
And thank you for your service with FEMA. Tell us a little bit more about why we're here today.
Well, a grave injustice was done to me while working with FEMA, and it's been hanging over my head for far too long, and I just need to find closure with it and move on.
How did all this start?
Well, I was on deployment in September of 2022 in Florida for Hurricane Ian. I was on that deployment for 3 months, from September to November. While I was there, I received 2 emails from some company called Travel Card APC. Never heard of them before, and they have no affiliation with FEMA, so I needed to find out what this was all about. There was an email stating that I owed $332.11 on my FEMA travel charge card. I didn't know what it was all about, so I contacted my cadre manager, Hetty Diaz, and she couldn't help me, so then I contacted Citibank.
So tell me a little bit more about that conversation with Citibank.
Okay, when I called Citibank, or I spoke with a rep who explained to me that those emails, she actually was kind of joking about it. She was like, they make it look so legitimate. And I was like, okay. And she said, what you need to do is send those emails to our fraud department. She gave me an email address to send it to the fraud department, and then she told me to give that information to the rest of my crew that I was on deployment with. The conversation was supposed to be recorded. I sent the emails directly to her, and since I was on deployment, I was still a member of Citibank because the travel card is governed by Citibank. So I assumed that all those emails went to the fraud department. I didn't hear anything after that, and I came home in November, and my next appointment wasn't until January.
Can you explain what a government charge card is and how it's used?
Okay, when you first joined FEMA, before you finished the class, the training in Alabama, you have to take a course on the travel charge card. Now this is a government travel charge card which is used by FEMA for every disaster reservist, as far as I know. You use it for flights, car rentals, and hotels whenever you're on deployment. Whenever you are on deployment, every 14 days you have to send in your receipt to Concur Travel. In turn, you get a voucher for those receipts, and the information about those receipts goes straight to FEMA Finance. But you have to use those cards. It's a mandatory thing. You can't go on deployment without them.
So did you receive any more emails from Travel Card APC?
Yes, when I came home, I didn't hear anything more from Citibank. But while I was home from November to January of 2023. I received 4 more emails from this Travel Card APC organization. And they said I still owed the same amount of $332.11. But since the Citibank rep told me that they were fraud emails, I deleted them. January of 2023, I went on deployment to California for the bomb cyclone. Then I received 3 more emails from Travel Card APC. This time it's saying that I had 3.5 weeks to pay or my card would be canceled, then 2 weeks, then 1 week for the same amount. And things started getting a little hectic then because I got nervous because that was a different email from the same department, from the same organization, but it was saying something different, and I needed to find out how I could handle it.
So when you deployed to California, did you mention the Travel Card APC emails to anyone?
Yes, whenever there's a deployment and we all come from different divisions, different states, we come to what's called the JFO, Joint Field Office. In the Joint Field Office, we get our computers, and we get our orders to go wherever we're going to go to, whoever we're going to link up with, whatever crews we're going to be on. And this particular deployment at the JFO, there was a host, a FEMA host, explained to us what the deployment was all about. At the end of that discussion, the host asked if there was any questions, or anything anybody had to say pertaining to deployment. So I stood up and I asked everybody that was in the room, there had to be about 30 or 40 people in the room, has anybody ever heard of Travel Card ABC? Has anybody ever received any emails? And 4 people raised their hands and said that they've received emails from this Travel Card APC company. It was kind of odd to me, so I went to the FEMA finance manager for that deployment and I mentioned it to him, and he couldn't do anything to help me because he's never heard of them. So there's nothing that could have been done at that point in time.
So what did you do afterwards, and did you keep receiving emails from Travel Card APC?
Okay, well, while I was on that deployment, I received 3 more emails from this Travel Card APC organization. One said I had 3.5 weeks to make the payment of $332.11 or my card would be canceled. That next week, I got another one saying that I had 2 weeks to pay it or my card would be canceled. That next week, I received another one saying I had 1 week to pay it or my card would be canceled. Well, that got me really scared because I didn't know what was going on. So I contacted my crew leader who was in another neighborhood, and she met me in the neighborhood where I was registering disaster survivors, and we tried to rectify this while we were in the neighborhood. While we were there, she also brought the deployment task force leader with her. They tried calling the FEMA finance manager for the deployment, Jacob Burkhart, and he did nothing. I didn't even speak to him, but since he's never heard of the organization, there's nothing he could do. So then they called my regional FEMA finance manager, Kristen Black. She didn't do absolutely anything to help me out. And then my cadre manager, Haiti Diaz, called me and said, just pay it. Her exact words were, just pay it. And when Citibank sees that it's a fraudulent charge, then they'll reimburse you. So I ended up paying. I trusted her. She's been a manager for a while, and I trusted her guidance. So I paid it. That was 3/32/11. Not even a minute later, I received an email from Citibank saying, thank you for your payment of 3/32/11. A minute later, I received another email from Travel Card APC, this time saying that I owed $189 something. I don't remember what the change was, but it was $189. I sent that email to both Kristen Black and Jacob Burkhart, but they never ever responded back to me. And that was the end of it. I didn't hear from Travel Card APC again.
What happened when you demobilized from California and came home?
Well, I was home from February till April. I wasn't on any other deployments, but this particular deployment was different because as a disaster reservist, especially for my job, we were able to keep our computers, but this particular time they were telling us to set our computers back. Now, the reason why this is important is because when we have to renew our passwords, we need our computers to do it because our badges we have to put into the computers to activate the computers in order for us to get into the computers and then change our passwords. But I didn't have a computer. All I had was my iPhone or rather the FEMA phone and the FEMA iPad. I couldn't change my passwords on those. So I was basically, all I had was my FEMA iPhone and that was it. But there were a couple of deployments that were, or rather a couple of disasters that were going through that I wasn't getting a request for, and it kind of bothered me. So I contacted my cadre manager, Haiti Diaz, and she was telling me that in order to renew my passwords, I had to get a computer, but I couldn't do it unless I was on deployment. But I wasn't getting any deployment requests, and it was kind of bothering me. So April 25th of 2023, I received an email from FEMA Finance stating that I owed $1,979.86 on my travel charge account, which I know for sure I didn't owe. I immediately called Haiti Diaz, my cadre manager, about this. I told her everything about it, and the first thing she said was, that's above me. I don't speak with FEMA Finance. You're going to have to call them yourself. You have to talk to the FEMA Finance manager, Kristen Black, and tell her your issue, and she'll be able to sit down with you and go over your account, and she'll be able to help you. But that's above me, and I don't do that. I'm sorry, I can't help you.
When you contacted Kristen Black, what did she have to say about it?
Well, that's just the thing. I tried to call her. I told her my whole issue. I actually had to leave a message on her answering machine because apparently she was out of the office conveniently, and I couldn't reach her personally. But I left an email and I left a voice message on her answering machine telling her my issue, and she never got back to me at all. The only thing she did was send me a one-page spreadsheet of all my transactions from August of the previous year to what was then current April of 23. And that was it. I've never heard from her again. I contacted her several times. Since I couldn't hear from her, there was an email that came with that spreadsheet saying that if you had an emergency, you can contact FEMA Finance, you can call them and they'll be able to attend to you. Well, I did that and nobody answered me, nobody got back to me. I lost days of work because I was waiting for somebody from FEMA Finance to get back to me, and nobody did. I received a 219-page spreadsheet from FEMA Finance, or some company called IBA Reconciliation, with every one of my transactions from 2020 when I first started FEMA up until April of 23, and that was no answer at all.
Were any of those charges on that spreadsheet adding up to the charges that you said that you owed?
No. And here's the very strange part. When you have a credit card statement, when you look at your statement, it tells you what the charge is, and in the other description box tells you, what was purchased, where, and by whom, what vendor. This particular charge did not have any description at all. It was just the primary charge of $1,979.86. And there was no build-up. It wasn't like a combination of different charges up to that point. It was just the one charge. And in the description box, it was absolutely blank. There was nothing there.
So what happened after that? And did you try to contact anyone else?
Well, I contacted Citibank several times, and each time they were kind enough to go over my entire account with me, and they couldn't find the amount at all. I tried to contact FEMA Finance several times. I would literally say between the time in April 25th to sometime beginning of June, I must have attempted to contact FEMA Finance about 8 or 9 times through emails and voice messages, but I never received one response at all. So I contacted my cadre manager, Hetty Diaz, and I told her about this issue. And she told me to send her all the emails that I've sent to FEMA Finance, which I did. I didn't hear back from her, and then she calls me and tells me that I had to pay the amount or they were going to let me go. The biggest thing about this is when I received that 219-page spreadsheet, I sent FEMA Finance a letter in detail explaining to them my situation and asking them, in fact begging them, to tell me or show me in any way, shape, or form where that amount is or what that amount was. And they never even responded to me at all, not once.
After receiving no answers, what were your next steps?
Well, like I said, my cadre manager called me back after not hearing from her after sending the emails to her and told me that they said that I had to pay for the charge or they would have to let me go. I wasn't about to take responsibility for something that wasn't my fault, so it actually placed me in a position where I had no other choice but to quit FEMA. So I sent them a resignation letter the next day, and I had to return all of my equipment. July, I needed to find out exactly what was going on and why I was mistreated this way, and the misconduct that was happening within my own region. So I decided to contact the FEMA Office for Professional Responsibility, or OPR. I told them my issue in detail, and they closed the case before they even had a chance to investigate.
That seems very suspicious.
Well, it is because it is suspicious. The FEMA OPR mission statement dictates that they are supposed to investigate all aspects of misconduct under the umbrella of the FEMA core values.
To include fraud, I assume.
Yes, definitely fraud, because it's definitely part of the investigation process of every staff member to make sure that they're being treated fairly. Apparently, they didn't even want any of my information, but I sent it to them anyway, and they sent me a list of interrogatories, questions about my whole issue, and I sent it to them. They didn't even bother investigating a single person, and they didn't want a single piece of information. They just closed the case before they even had a chance to do anything.
Have you had any other correspondence or discussions with Citibank since those previously discussed?
Yes, I have. Last October is when I actually spoke to a rep to do an update on my account. That's when I was basically told that none of what I called about back while I was on deployment in Florida was even there. Emails weren't there, the fraudulent emails that were sent me weren't there, the call wasn't recorded, and there's no data on my account that I even called. So it's been a couple of months, and I've been trying to contact corporate Citibank to see if I can get any answers. I figured if anybody could help me out with this particular issue, it would be them. Finally, I got a call back from corporate collections from Citibank, who told me that the issue that I'm having with FEMA with the amount on my travel charge card isn't even my charge. FEMA didn't pay it, and instead of them helping me, they just walked away and just told me to pay it. They had me to do it on my own, and they never paid it. So that basically tells you that they didn't really care about the fact that I needed this taken care of. So basically, I'm at a dead end with that, but at least it's starting to make sense now where this is coming from. So I did a little research, and it appears that the U.S. Army CID has done investigations on Citibank, tying them with this phishing scam of travel card APC, and that's where this is coming from. I've attempted several times to try to get a security specialist from the fraud department to get back to me to see if they can send me those emails so I can prove that this happened, but no one's gotten back to me. I think the last contact I made was about a month ago, and I'm still waiting, and I haven't heard anything. So that basically tells you what's going on here, that this phishing scam is linked to Citibank. This travel card ABC organization is a phishing scam created within the Citibank Corporation. If you were to go online and type in the search for it, you'll see many windows for travel card APC. Technically, the travel card APC company is a legitimate organization which encompasses the Defense Travel Agency and caters to the military and other defense entities, but are not affiliated with FEMA. So it appears that what Citibank did was use the title of Travel Card APC found online and call themselves the Travel Card APC Finance Department. Their objective was to send emails to FEMA employees telling them that they owed specific amounts on their travel charge cards and that their cards would be canceled if they weren't paid.
After receiving no help from your FEMA managers, do they answer to any type of ethics board on these types of issues?
I wanted to know that for myself, so I actually went to the FEMA site and I found an email for the ethics committee for FEMA, and I emailed them, and I did get a response, but the person that responded to me said that there was no specific ethical board review for staff members, but there is an ethics board for the conduct, FEMA conduct or misconduct. So that's as far as I got with that. I don't know who FEMA, the managers, answer to. I know as reservists and the little people on the totem pole, we have to answer to our supervisors, but the question is, who do the managers answer to? If there's no board of ethics for staff members, who do they answer to? There's been, I've seen where there is a discussion from the ethics board on code of conduct, but there is actually no board review for staff members.
So where are you at currently, and what would you like to see as an outcome from this circumstance?
Well, I'll tell you, this thing's been eating me up since it started, and I've absolutely, to be honest, I'm still at ground zero from after all this time, and this shouldn't happen to anybody, much less FEMA employees. But I think after all this should be looked at a lesson learned from within the confines of FEMA. And I'm not just sending this out to disaster reservists. I'm sending this out to anybody in FEMA who this has happened to. And it shouldn't have happened, it shouldn't have gotten this far. I think that that somebody has to be held accountable for their actions and their misconduct. The FEMA Code of Conduct dictates that to help other people before, during, and after disasters. And it encompasses the umbrella of the FEMA core values of compassion, fairness, integrity, and respect. But all that goes out the window when it's something that they don't want to do to help out the FEMA employees who need them the most. And I don't think that this isn't even about money for me. I don't care about that. But somebody's got to be held accountable, and they have to be responsible for what they've done. And if it's in their heart to do it to me, then it's already in their heart to do it to other people. And I don't think that it should be just brushed away, brushed aside. So I guess this is my way of finding closure with this, because I can't go any further with it. And I hope that somebody does something to assure this type of behavior doesn't happen again. Because I'm not the only person this has happened to. And those specific people need to be talked to. They need to be, I'm not a vengeful person, but if this is the type of behavior that FEMA allows within their organization, then what does that say to you about FEMA? And those people should be held accountable. Yesterday I received a phone call from the Citibank corporate fraud investigator, and it's a phone call I've been waiting for 2.5 years, and this phone call is actually a final piece of the puzzle for something I've been trying to rectify for the past 2.5 years. But we had a very good conversation. She broke down my account piece by piece. It was about 40 minutes, and well, it was a very good conversation. There's a lot that I want to say, but I'm afraid I'm going to forget it all, so if you don't mind, I wrote it, so I'm just going to read it. Okay, the investigator told me that the Travel Card APC Finance Department is actually an entity within FEMA, more directly FEMA Finance. As many times as she has told me this, unfortunately, I'm not convinced about it, because I have asked FEMA Finance many times who they are, including Jacob Burkhart as well as Kristen Black, and not a single person has answered me as to who they are, and act like they've never heard of them. So I still don't believe that this company is within FEMA, because I've asked the investigator many times if there was a recording of the conversation that I had back in September of 22 when I was in Florida. She said there was nothing recorded. She said there's no data entry on the information when I made the call, and conveniently they can't seem to find the emails that were sent to me by Travel Card ABC Finance Department. And so I need those to prove that this happened to me, but apparently they can't find those either. So that's very suspicious. So because of this, I'm not convinced that fraud didn't come from Citibank. The inspector was, or as you were, the investigator was kind enough to break down the entire account in detail, and she concurred with my original claim that the account, which was the balance of $1,979.86, was a balance which FEMA should have paid and not something that I owed. And because they wouldn't help me at all, I ended up starting to make payments on it when I shouldn't have. Because all I wanted to do was go to work. But I made payments on it, and it's something that FEMA should have taken care of, but instead of helping me, they walked away from me, and I was left to my own devices. This fact, in which FEMA Finance Manager Kristen Black, as well as the FEMA Finance, should have helped me with, but instead, they chose to ignore my issue and walked away from me. The investigator has mailed me indisputable proof of this, and I will be sending it to FEMA Finance, which she suggested, in which case they need to reimburse me. After all this time, I was completely abandoned and left to do all of the grunt work on my own. In doing so, I stacked up the evidence, followed the facts, and this is what the facts have told me, and they are not disputed. My cadre manager, Hetty Diaz, didn't bother to utilize her chain of command and chose to walk away from my issue. Kristen Black, my FEMA Finance Manager, never cared enough about my issue to help me, as well as FEMA Finance, and walked away from my issue, never responding to me. OPR didn't even bother to investigate all the misconduct and unprofessionalism and unethical work practices that were committed against me, and just walked away from me completely. But in spite all of this and all the trauma that this ordeal has caused me, I forgive them. I just pray that they will all learn to forgive themselves in the process. FEMA wanted to terminate my employment based over something that wasn't even my fault. It wasn't even my responsibility. And this forced me to quit FEMA. I just hope that this video will allow people to realize that something really is wrong here, and that those responsible should be held responsible and dealt with accordingly. And for what it's worth, I hope that this video will bring something to light and cause FEMA to take a second look and see exactly what it is that's going wrong. That this happened to me, and not to ignore it, but to do something about it. I absolutely loved the job I had with FEMA. Unfortunately, the FEMA government agency is one of those entities who are strongly disliked, and when we're out there registering disaster survivors for disaster assistance, be it working in a disaster recovery center or registering survivors in a neighborhood, we have huge targets on our backs. Needless to say, putting our lives at risk. It humbles you because you're grateful that the disaster didn't happen to you, and at the same time, it breaks your heart to see people and families going through such a tumultuous time, and they look to us for assistance. But when you're a disaster reservist out there doing the grunt work, unfortunately, you have to rely on FEMA management, the ones who aren't out there to assist you when you need it. I was in a dire situation and I desperately attempted to reach out to my FEMA management several times for help with my issue. And all they did was toss me aside, leaving me to fend for myself and leaving me to feel basically like an orphan. I don't know how long FEMA has been contracting Citibank Group to govern our travel charge cards, but this travel card APC Finance Department phishing scam that's going on within Citibank is something that FEMA seriously needs to question and investigate, and if they choose not to do so, then the guilt must also fall upon FEMA because they've allowed this to happen. Hetty Diaz, Kristen Black, the FEMA Finance Department, FEMA OPR, and Citibank all need to be investigated on the basis of neglect, unprofessionalism, unethical work practices, misconduct, and as far as Citibank is concerned, fraud. I was forced to quit my job because they didn't care to do theirs, completely lacking compassion and having no empathy for me as an employee, nor for that of my issue. And I feel that if they don't have the professional maturity nor capability to do their jobs or even care to do so, then frankly, they really don't deserve to have those jobs and be in positions of authority. I mean, what does it take to change the essence of a person? There's a Bible quote which is very profound and conducive to all this. For nothing is secret that will not be revealed, nor anything hidden that will not be known and come to light. Luke 8:17. It's something that FEMA may need to remember. This entire ordeal has made my PTSD, sleep deprivation, insomnia, and anxiety resurface. I've been in therapy for it and I'm still dealing with these issues, but it's okay. Jesus has given me the strength to get through all of it, and He is always at my side, so I'll be alright. But if I have learned anything at all from all of this, it's that whatever respect I did have for FEMA has completely disappeared, and it's all they're doing. And not for nothing, they should all be ashamed of themselves for the mistreatment which they so easily promoted deliberately, devoid of remorse and remaining unrepentant in their actions. I hope that they're proud of themselves. What they need to do is take stock and recognize the damage that they've caused, because it goes against everything that FEMA stands for, and the public needs to be well aware of that because appearances are deceiving. So, to any and all reservists and staff members who may have had this kind of ordeal happen to them, I'll say this. If you reach out to FEMA management and they tell you, sorry, I can't help you. If any crew leader or manager tells you, no, remember this video.